there's a few times when there had been a murder and the person who had committed the murder was a Somali, say, and it's not always Somalis. It's like I feel like there's different people or different groups from Africa all over the inner cities in London, and what they're failing to understand is that these days London is dangerous. It's not like America dangerous, but there are no, you know what I mean. But there are like 170 gangs. There are 170. I have to do math. There are 170 gangs in London alone. There's different gangs in London, and a lot of those gangs I know are made up of different elements of Africa. So you get like big Somali gangs and big Nigerian gangs, and a lot of the war, a lot of the fighting is caused by stuff that's going on, you know, abroad. So they're coming over. They're coming over. What do I sound like? Taking our jobs. They're coming over, and all of this stuff is happening. But when the newspapers are reporting it, they're reporting it as black crime, black on black crime. They're not really thinking about what is happening. And what is upsetting is that, you know, with all the idea, all that we know about the like movement, the shift in landmass, and by that I'm talking about like when Africa met Europe and the New World, when all those things, when all those cultures clashed and they came together, we all understand, because everybody writes about slavery and the effects and different skin color and how people are forced to live together. So during the 60s, when my parents moved from Nigeria to London, there was that great wave of immigration, and everyone understands that and everyone documents that. But the immigration that is happening now, this is where there is war and people get displaced, and then some countries say, well, I'll take 1,000 of those, and other countries say, I take 1,000. That isn't being taken into, like, people aren't really documenting that as they should be. So when there is a murder, this is all I'm trying to say, and I know I'm going on. So when there is a murder, sometimes it isn't just a gang, and it isn't just about drugs, it's about young people who are very traumatized and who are carrying a lot of, they're carrying a lot, sometimes they've seen too much, and they're carrying that around, and they're dumped in places like estates with people like me, and I think that was getting on my nerves a little bit. And so that was why the book is split that way.
I want to give the audience plenty of time for question and answer, so I'm just going to wrap up with my part. Then if you could read a little bit more,
sure,
that'd be great. But could you talk about a little bit about Bloom as a character? Because I thought he was interesting as he's pretty much, I think, the only really white character in the book, and he's at once menacing, especially in the scene with Lena, and their guardian. And I just wondered if you had a specific type of figure in mind when you created him? Or?
Absolutely, definitely. I know exactly who he is. This guy, Mr. Bloom, is a character that I started off trying to make him, I tried to hate him. He's like a white male figure in the book. The name Bloom, when I lost my business, I was made a bankrupt. And what they do when you're made bankrupt in the UK, they appoint an official receiver to freeze your bank accounts and basically follow you around so that you're not allowed to make any money. So there was me feeling like, I'd started this magazine for black men. Okay, I'd lost it, and I owed a few printers some money. I printed the magazine sometimes and I didn't pay the printers. Yes. So I understood that you made bankrupt. So I had to, but I tried to siphon off some money. I tried to say, well, look, there's an account. I need to eat. Just put some money away so that he can, they can. But this official receiver, he was really thorough, and his name was Blue, right? And we ended up fighting over, it was something like £30,000, which isn't a lot of money, but at the time I didn't have a business and I didn't have a job, and I didn't know what I was going to be doing, so I was fighting tooth and nail for this money, and we ended up going to court, and he turned up, and he basically, you know, won the money. I wasn't able to have the money, and I remember he looked really smug, he looked really happy that he had done that to me. And I remember saying to the judge, and I know this sounds like a lie, when you asked the question, or when you sent the email through, I remember thinking, when I say this, it's going to sound like a lie, but it's the truth, right? I remember thinking, if you take that money from me, it means you're trying to kill me. Do you understand? Yes. What am I going to do? I've got no money, you've closed my accounts. I'm gonna hate you. Do you understand? It's not like a joke. I'm gonna be like that person who hates you. I'm gonna try and do everything in my power to make money however I can. And do you understand what that means? And I don't want to be bad, but look, I've got no money, I've got no account. If you take that from me, I'm screwed. And they did it anyway. And I remember sitting there feeling like this is what happens, this is what makes people go out and act, what do you guys say, the fool. Yes. And that's when I started feeling like, look, I do understand, and I know it's you know, there are a whole myriad of issues about why it's wrong to sell drugs and blah blah blah, but I kind of felt like, what are you supposed to do? If I want to study law, in order to earn money, I mean, you can set up a shop on a high street and get no one's going to come to hire you, right? And so you're going to lose that shop. So you want to be a barrister, you want to be able to go before a judge and earn money like everyone else. And in order to do that, you have to get articles. And in order to get articles, you have to get a year's work in a decent solicitor's office. And you're not going to get that if you're young and you're just not. And I know that sounds like you're whinging and you know, work harder and all of that stuff, but I tried it, and lots of people that I know tried it, and I just started to feel like I needed to get out of it, and I really understand why people get frustrated and why people get angry. I understand why there's a problem, and no one is going to listen to somebody like me. You know, they can go into your account and they can take your money, and they can look at you and they know you're utterly helpless, and you can go home and you can do nothing. And you know, and I think about this now, and I know I'm way off topic, and I don't want to, like, I'm not there now, you understand? Please buy my book. You know, I'm not that angry nutcase. All I'm trying to say is I left London for a reason. I lucked out with writing this book. I feel like I can write, and that's what I want to do. But now, if you think about it, I've been here just over a year, and I haven't killed anybody, I haven't robbed anybody, and I've bumped, not that I want to or anything like that. What I mean is, the sorts of networking that I've always known that worked for other people in the UK, that wasn't working for me. Yes. I feel like I've experienced that here. Within the space of a year, I was in the park, Fort Green Park. I was walking my son. You know, I didn't know what I was going to do. I wasn't sure. You know, I'm still like, you know, yes, I've written this book. It's been published in the UK. But you know, my wife will tell you that I'm broke. And so what are you going to do? I'm walking around the park and I meet a woman who's also walking her child. And we get chatting, and she says that she's a teacher, and I say, oh, I'd love to teach. And she said, well, you know, I'm thinking of not going back. I'll let my professor know that, you know, you're looking. And the following day, the professor rings, and he says, are you looking for work? I said, yes, could you come in for an interview? I turn up for an interview, and it's you know, it's an older black man who's looking at me, and I can see he's like, you know, you're English. You understand what I mean? He's like, he's listening to my accent. My accent is working for me. So I'm a little lost. I'm a little bit lost because I'm feeling like I'm not English. I'm Nigerian, you know, I'm like you work for the department I want to work for, but he's looking at me and he's respecting me because I'm English, because of my accent, so I'm playing on that. But what I'm trying to say is I got the job and it felt like a break. And it's the sort of thing that I think that's all you need. Now I feel like, and I'm not rich, but I feel like valued. I feel like getting on the train and going and teaching 45 American students. They think that I'm smart. And I'm like,
We're very cool about this.
I know that.
You smart, you are.
No, but what I mean is that that sort of break is all that you want. You need an opportunity like that. And the thought of me being in London and meeting someone in a park and then getting a call from a professor, and then walking into a good university and teaching, it just wouldn't happen. And I think that's unfair, and I think that they need to sort it out, and I think that while they're sorting it out, people should just leave, you know? Because I literally I would have lost, you know, I would have been sitting in London doing what right now, but instead, you know, here I am bluffing my way as a novelist.
Well, on that note, would you read?
Sorry. Okay, so Armina, one of the main narrators, she's just identified her brother's dead body. She's witnessed the death of her entire family, and he was the last member. So she decides to get on a train and go to a Somali restaurant in London where she can try and connect. So Zudzi, the restaurant is called Zudzi, is painted yellow with mismatched 4-meter counters and tie-dye tablecloths. It is quiet. One person cooks, serves and washes dishes, and no one ever speaks English. The restaurant is run and owned by a business co-op of Somali women who were in the local paper recently for their hot sauce deal with Sainsbury's supermarket. There is a sign on the register written in Afa and Somali. Listen friends, no more food loans, cash only. More blessings to Big Auntie when she gives tips. The clientele are exclusively Somali women. Most of them are like me, refugees granted political asylum. Although a few non-Somali neighbours have started to trickle in, you know, excuse me, the Shia butter set blacks that come as part of their perpetual search for Africa, and the type of culture-hungry, hippie-looking white person who wants a slice of everything. There isn't a no men sign on the entrance, but there may as well be. There is always a deep thread of anxiety about men for all of us. Sometimes a stray who thinks he owns a pair, that highly bred mould of Somali man with disgusting candour will enter. All the women will watch him with suspicion. From the moment he walks in, the place will clam up tight, and you can feel the white-hot tension because we can never trust what might erupt from him at any moment. It will take a brave man to eat comfortably in a place like this. How are you today, divorce? It took a while before I got used to her calling me that. She is Sister Asha, but I've heard them call her Star Trek because she escaped by trekking from her hometown in the Gahali refugee camp in the northeastern province of Kenya. She was housed in a tent made of branches covered with patches of plastic and cloth among thorn trees and scrubland swamps. Since Ethiopia invaded Somalia, I've heard of thousands who ran away from Mogadishu to the camps. Sister Asha said the camp sheltered more than 20,000 people, mostly women and children. It became a target of armed troops. Sister Asha was raped at gunpoint 7 times. God is great, I said. There was a menu. Not all of it was available every day, and it took me months to try most of it. The portions were generous. The most expensive thing, mufu, cost £3, And when I first tasted it, it was so delicious, just like my mother's, that I almost wept. I sat in the same spot on each of my visits, just on the edge of the room where most of the others gathered to chat. 1.5, said Sister Asha, don't forget your change. I was slightly embarrassed for the woman who hobbled from her table on one leg to collect her change. They're giving her too much disability allowance so she can afford to throw money away, said Sister Asha loudly. All the women, landmine, machete, and soft touch, laughed at that, especially 1.5 herself. I asked for the chicken sikwa, a stew of diced chicken, green peppers, onions, carrots, a fair amount of celery, and a few chunks of potato. It smelled like coriander, but it was like eating fire, and the burn from the peppers lingered on the tongue for hours. Sister Asha lowered her eyes from mine and sadness crept over her face. Don't you feel well today? She asked. Me, I'm fine. Maybe when you eat you feel better. She had a gentle way of speaking. She studied me closely while I searched for the right thing to say. Divorce, she said, you don't look right. What has happened? I felt a balloon expanding behind my chest. My brother, I said calmly. I paused momentarily, and then I abandoned all pretense, and I stood balanced on the verge of something, tears or collapse. She glided around the counter, stood beside me. She held the nape of my neck and led me to a table where she sat down with me. I watched the soft sway of her headscarf, green with gold trim. Her lavish scent enveloped me, causing a warm, pleasant sensation. My brother is dead, he killed himself. And then I told her everything except about Mr. Bloom. Hey, yay, she said. She furrowed her brow and she began to rub her hands along my back. She told the other women and my mouth went dry on account of all the eyes that fixed on me. Most of the women carried the vacant expression of those who have endured the same loss. Zutzi normally has a soothing atmosphere, but not that day. My truth crashed it open like a box and transformed it into some murky place, small and gloomy, with dark furniture, bereft of happiness, where the air is heavy and damp with tears. I glanced fleetingly at some of the women who had come over to comfort me. Their colourful robes and head ties reminded me of some ghostly market clan. The women said sorry with their eyes in that distinctive Somali way. None of them seemed to have lost, despite their escape from home. I tried my best to avoid their sad gaze because I could feel homesickness trying to overwhelm me. I looked around at the empty tables, examined the beautiful paintings hanging on the walls and photographs of missing family members stuck wishfully above a Bible in the window, as though they might be wandering the streets of East London. Then I imagined Ashwin sitting next to me. There he was, sitting beside me, slurping over pepper soup, and then he vanished. Zutzi seemed immense. After some time, an old woman with a long face who had lost her 5 daughters came over. She looked at me and held my hands in hers. Allah gives you all you can bear, she said, with the authority of her years. As she wept, a black gas filled my head. I couldn't breathe, but I didn't want to cry. Then some of the women began to sing that old mournful song they always sang in my country when somebody died. And finally, I wept, safe in the weird comfort of their eerie lament.